Hey guys, and welcome to the animation portion of this Minecraft workshop. We're going to go over sort of the more simplistic version of the animation that we did in the Trident animation, and I'm going to be going over how to animate with a prop as well as some basics of animation. But I do recommend researching animation on your own because it is a huge, broad subject with a lot of different studies and styles and stuff like that. The foundations are all pretty much the same, so I do recommend looking up the 12 principles of animation as well as some dynamic posing concepts because it does help out a lot when you're learning how to do animation. So I'm sort of just going to walk through my thought process as I animate instead of going through every single detail for every situation. So this will be very specific to this animation, so we're going to go ahead and jump into it. Now before we start, we're going to go ahead and go into the animation workspace. You can do that simply by hitting Control left arrow twice, and that will bring you to the animation workspace, which is very nice. We have the dope sheet here, we have the graph editor here, we have the timeline at the bottom, of course, the viewport here, and all our necessary stuff here. We also have a little window here for our camera if we want to. Usually people keep it on the camera, at least I do, and that helps me kind of see exactly where my camera view is, which is nice. So we're going to go ahead and start by selecting this guy, which is the rig, and you can hit Control Tab to go into pose mode. Now I do recommend turning on auto keyframes, which is right over here, this red record button, automatic keyframe insertion for objects and bones. That means whenever you move an object, it will automatically detect that change and mark it down as a keyframe so that it becomes animated. Keyframes are basically the foundation of how animation works, where they sort of take a key pose, I should say, and then interpolate the animation between the other pose. And when I say they, I mean Blender, the software does it. And so when you interpolate between two poses, you get an animation. So you want to have as many poses as you can and sort of get a good animation done through that iteration process. So we're going to go ahead and animate just a simple throw. He's going to be throwing it, and we're going to be going over how to animate a prop leaving his hand, dynamic parenting and stuff like that. And then we're just going to go over the basics of the throw itself. So he's just going to be standing here. We had a sitting version in the final animation, but it's the same thing basically. So we're going to go ahead and pose him first. Go ahead and turn this on real quick, the automatic keyframe insertion. It should be toggled on. And then we're going to go ahead and move this guy into a position that kind of looks like he's about to throw something. So space his legs apart just a little bit. Move this thing down. Bring this thing over here. I'm going to twist his torso. And one thing that's very important for animation is to always use reference. If you can look at yourself or imagine yourself doing a pose or a movement and sort of reference your own movements, that is usually one of the best references you can find because you can do anything with it and just record yourself or just imagine yourself doing it, whichever one is good enough for you. But usually recording yourself is considered the holy grail of reference, right? So a lot of animators do that. Now, this I can already imagine myself. I'm about to throw, so I sort of wind back. But I'm not going to wind my hip back too much. I'm going to wind my chest back more. So we're going to take this back a little bit. There we go. And sort of have the head here be looking at his target. So I want to make sure that he's sort of staring at the cake, right? He's pretty much staring at the cake. There we go. So he'll be looking at the cake while he throws. So he has the eye on the ball, so to speak, right? And his wind up here. Actually, let's go ahead and start him up. Start him out in the pre-wind up, just so we can get the actual wind up animation in there. So I'll sort of have him facing the other way first, and this is all about anticipation, which is sort of like the opposite of what he's about to do is happening because you have to kind of wind up, right? Whenever you bounce, whenever you jump, you crouch down first, right? So kind of the same thing for a wind up. Whenever you punch, you wind backwards first, right? And then you punch. So that wind up is very important. The anticipation is very important for animation to look natural and feel real. I'm not going to bend his legs as much. It doesn't seem like he's that excited to get the cake, but just decently excited. Oh, this camera is a little bit far. I want to move him forward a little bit, so I'm going to go and bring him in by clicking G and then clicking G and then clicking middle click drag to bring them over. And in fact, you don't actually have to drag it again with Blender. You can just click it and let go, and it'll automatically enter that transformation state. So yeah, I'm going to do that a few times, bring it to the point that we wanted that. In fact, I'm going to just hit N and then go to this, change it to 90, 0, and 90. Wait, hang on, my numlocks off. There we go. 90, 0, and 90. There we go. So that will be exactly pretty much what we want. Perfect. So now that we have that there, we can actually use that as a reference a little bit. By the way, I'm hitting Shift Spacebar to zoom in and out of my viewport. If I ever want to full screen my workspace here, you can just hit Shift Space with your mouse, hovering over it, and it will zoom up on that particular panel, which is very helpful when you're working in these small workspaces where the viewport could be bigger. And then you have this dope sheet over here. You can also drag it around if you want. It's up to you. But yeah, so we have this, and we're going to go ahead and go to the next pose, which I'm going to go ahead and say it's at probably frame 10-ish. So we're going to bring that back. Oh, there we go. Bring that back over here and sort of bring this over here. Kind of have the hip wind back just a little bit now. And then see if we can get this guy almost to the final peak. The peak as far back as he can go. Almost there, not there yet. So he's going to kind of be here first. I'm going to push this guy back a little bit to kind of get this sort of lag behind. As you can see here, if you interpolate now between the two, you can hold Alt and then scroll bar to see your animation in the timeline, or you can hit Alt A to play it. But I like to use the scroll wheel. Sorry, it's not scroll bar, scroll wheel, and that will allow you to kind of scrub through. So I want to push this back a little bit so that we can get this sort of momentum from the arm here, so that you can kind of feel the arm actually is lagging behind a little bit. That lag behind is one of the most important concepts in animation, in my opinion. This is a personal thing, but I do think it's one of the most important. I believe it's called follow through, because it sort of follows the primary animation there. But I like to call it non-deliberate motion, because that's something that is sort of controlled by physics, not really something that is mentally being controlled by the human mind or anything like that, or whatever animal is you're animating. If something is deliberate, it will feel a lot different than if something non-deliberate. So non-deliberate versus deliberate motion is like my biggest separation of motion when I animate. So that's that, and then we're going to go ahead and wind this up now, as you can see here. And I kind of want his throw to be, yeah, we'll kind of throw it like a spear. I think it's fine. We kind of want it to feel like a trident, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and keep it here, closer to his body, but sort of remove his wrist so he doesn't stab himself in the face, ideally. So we're just going to go ahead and do that, and then keep this guy pointing forward as we go, just because I sort of want it to feel like a lancer, right? So he sort of keeps the spear in the same, looking in the same direction as he throws. And so the next step is going to be, approximately lead with the hip, kind of push him forward just a little bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and again push this back to sort of get that lag behind just a little bit. I'm actually going to push the chest back a little bit. There we go. Sort of almost feel like the hip is turning without the rest of the body. Almost. That's a little bit too much, Dylan. I think the hip is actually, as you can see here, if you didn't keyframe the hip in between, you're going to want to go ahead and sort of like copy paste that keyframe over by hitting Shift D, which works fine. But I'm going to go ahead and actually delete that keyframe in the middle there, just so that we can get that interpolation between the torso a little bit smoother and happening a little bit sooner. And that way it just kind of like naturally leads to the throw here. There we go. And again, I do recommend looking up animation tutorials separately. If you're new to animation, there's not much you will be able to take away just from this tutorial. I think you definitely have to be watching as much tutorials as possible for animation. I'm still learning how to animate, and it's been many years since I started. So I do recommend doing your own research as well. I can only get so much done. I can only explain so much in like 10 minutes or so. So we'll try our best. But okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna go and do that. We'll bring this guy to continue looking forward as we sort of get the throw in here. I'm gonna bring this guy just up a little bit. There we go. Maybe actually, we'll move him forward now, because I think he should have a sort of like a 2-frame throwing transition between like being winding up and actually performing the action. Another thing is, of course, since I'm imagining myself throwing, the front arm, the leading arm, actually goes back before the chest does. So that's how you know. That's how you know the throw's about to happen, right? So you sort of bam. Now you might be thinking, wow, Dylan, this is great, but it's really slow. And of course, you're probably not even thinking this is great because it's not looking that good. But it's okay. It's okay, bro. I mean, it's a work in progress, and that's important to know when you're animating. Just don't feel like you know, just because it's not good immediately, it's not going to be good when you're done, because you have to really believe that you can work at it and get it done. For animation, you have to keep that vision in mind and stuff like that. It's an important part of the job. So we're going to go and do that. Bring it in just a little further. But on top of that, actually, we have to bring the chest in. I forgot about that. The chest is going to have a lot to do with how far this hand can reach. So that chest rotation is important. And as you can see here, we have sort of the peak of the throw here. I'm going to bring this guy to look forward again. I'm going to have this guy sort of relax his left hand now. Really get that to sell like a swing after he kind of forgets about his left hand. There we go. So you kind of get the idea here that he sort of is winding up. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and actually take the chest here and bring it a little bit to the left. His left, I should say. There we go. And then kind of bring that anticipation up in terms of the actual chest rotation. Just a little bit more, I think, would be good. Because as of right now, he's sort of not even... doesn't feel like he's winding up that much. But as you can see here, we have it good. It's a little slow, and we want to fix that. Now, having it slow is actually, in my opinion, really good because you have all the keyframes you need now. And for me, I always animate slower than I am really aiming to go. And so I space out my keyframes quite a bit. And that's called timing, spacing, whatever you want to call it. It's another principle of animation. But in 2D animation, it sort of just, you know, was a concept that you had to really make sure you got right as you were doing it. But for 3D animation, I can animate it at whatever speed I want and then just select everything in the dope sheet with my cursor at the beginning of the timeline and then just hit S and scale that down. And once you scale that down, it's going to happen, instead of it happening in 30 frames, it's now happening in 20 frames. So it's now a third faster, about 33% faster. Let's see how that looks. It's a lot better. It's a lot better. I think we can go even faster. So I can actually do S 0.5, which will speed it up by 2 times, and then we'll see what it looks like at double speed. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. It has a lot more probability to his to the speed of his throw, which is nice. Actually, it looks like he can throw the sword instead of it dropping out of his hand. But I do think it could be a little bit faster. But I do think we need to move around the keyframes just a little bit in terms of the spacing. So right here, I want like this in between these 2 keyframes, this one and this one. I want there to be more time. So actually, I want to say this one and this one. So we get the peak, and then we get the wind up right before the peak. So we're going to do that. So he sort of winds up as much as he can. If we move this forward this way, it looks kind of weird because it looks like he's already sort of moving forward in slow motion. Instead, we want the slow motion to be right before he moves, and then right when he throws it, he goes fast. So it's like wind up and then fast throw, right? So we want that to be. There we go. So he winds up, fast throw. Winds up, fast throw. So that looks pretty good. I think the fast throw can be even faster. There we go. And then, of course, we talked about follow-through. This is actual follow-through when it comes to sports and stuff like that. You really do want to have a nice follow-through after your throw or whatever. Looks like his hip is a little bit too twisted now. So we're going to put all the follow-through into his chest, which should be happening anyway. So I'm going to make sure there's all this follow-through here. With his chest to make sure he basically overshoots his motion because there's always momentum and you don't want to resist it, because if you resist it in sports and stuff like that, oftentimes it means that your throw or your punch is going to be weaker. That's why they encourage the follow through. So we want to make sure that this throw is pretty strong. And so he's like, boom. So as you can see, there's a follow through there, but he still will let go of his sword at the same time. So we kind of want to actually show that in a little bit. So I'm going to show off exactly how to do dynamic parenting in just a little bit. So before we do all of that, I want to finish the animation first for this throw here. And we can do some steps, some footsteps, because that's a very important thing to do. I'm going to go ahead and have him, let's see. I think he should step forward at the peak of his wind-up here. And then we can have that sort of drive his momentum as he moves his hip forward a little bit, just so we can get that kind of feeling a little bit more realistic. Now, one of the best ways I like to do this is just to have it move from one spot to another along the flat axis, right? The Y and X axis, and then we're going to go ahead and just go to the in between them as they interpolate, and just lift it up along the Z axis. As you can see here, it has a very natural footstep. Of course, the center of gravity is not falling, which it should, so we're just going to reanimate the hip real quick. to move forward just a little bit to get that there. There we go. So it moves forward. Nice. And then right here, move forward again. Nice. Right here, move forward again. There we go. Just to get that adjustment to be a little bit more correct. I'm going to move him down a little bit as well. There we go. There we go. Nice. Okay, so there we go. That should look pretty good. Now, again, I'm talking about the throwing of the sword. You want to make sure that that throw is actually going to feel like it left the hand at the right time and everything like that. So sometimes what people do is they actually take the sword and they duplicate it, and they sort of like shoot it out, by sort of hiding one and then appearing the other. You could do that if you want to. I used to do that, but it's more efficient to do dynamic parenting because you can actually use the exact same object and then shoot it through. So that's a lot better in my opinion. So we're going to go ahead and say that that is pretty much done. That's a pretty basic animation. I think this is a good place to leave off for now. So I'll see you guys in the next video where we talk a little bit about dynamic parenting, where he throws the sword and it leaves his hand and then it attaches to the cake. I was originally planning for the sword to come back and have him catch it and stuff like that. I don't think it's going to give you any extra information, so we're just going to go ahead and leave it at the throw and have it parented to the cake after that. So hopefully you guys learned a lot from this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next one.